employees see things shoppers never do. They watch what actually gets returned, what breaks within a week, and what quietly becomes a favorite among regulars who come back for the same item again and again. So I asked a longtime Dollar Tree employee a simple question. If she were shopping specifically for her own aging parents, what would she actually put in the cart? Her answer wasn't the usual list of trendy finds or viral hauls. It was practical, specific, and honestly a little surprising. Built entirely around what she's watched hold up over years of working the floor. She didn't hesitate much before answering either, which told me this wasn't a list she was making up on the spot. It was clearly something she'd already thought through carefully for her own family's sake. Today we're going through her full list, 10 items she genuinely recommends for anyone shopping for an older parent or relative, and why each one made her personal cut. None of these are things she was told to say for the sake of a good answer either. Every single one came from a real, specific memory of her own family actually using it. If insider recommendations like this are useful to you, go ahead and hit that like button, and let's get into it. Number 1. The rubber-gripped can opener. She specifically called this one out first, saying it's the item she's replaced for her own mother twice already, because the old handheld openers were simply too hard to grip. This one, at $1.25, has a wide, cushioned handle that requires noticeably less hand strength to operate, and the cutting wheel has stayed sharp through months of regular use without needing to be replaced. According to her, it's one of the most quietly life-changing items on the shelf for anyone dealing with reduced grip strength. She also mentioned that the smooth-edge cutting mechanism leaves a rounded rim on opened cans rather than a sharp edge, which removes a small but genuine safety risk that a lot of people don't think about until someone gets cut. She's specifically recommended it to several coworkers whose own parents were struggling with the same grip issue, and every single one has reported back that it made a genuine, immediate difference. She keeps a couple extra behind the register specifically because she's ended up recommending it so often to shoppers who mention exactly the same struggle her own mother had. She said it's genuinely rewarding to watch someone come back weeks later specifically to say how much easier meal prep has become since making the switch. Number 2. The LED nightlight with dusk sensor. This automatic nightlight, at $1.25, turns on by itself at dusk and off at dawn, which she specifically praised for removing the risk of a forgotten light left on all day, or worse, a hallway left completely dark at night. It's helped reduce nighttime stumbling for her own father, getting up for water or the bathroom. And the soft glow is bright enough to see by, without being harsh enough to disrupt sleep. She's placed a couple throughout the hallway and near the bathroom door specifically, since the automatic sensor means nobody has to remember to turn anything on or off. She also mentioned the battery life has held up well over several months, which matters for a device that's meant to just work quietly in the background without ever needing attention. She's specifically recommended placing one right at the top or bottom of any staircase too, since that's a common spot for a nighttime misstep in a dimly lit house. It's a genuinely low-cost, low-effort change that quietly reduces risk in exactly the spots where accidents tend to happen most, without requiring any kind of major home renovation or expensive smart lighting system. It's exactly the kind of practical, invisible upgrade that quietly makes a home safer without changing how anything looks or feels day to day. Number 3. The extra-large print address book. This large print address book, at $1.25, has bold, easy-to-read lines and columns that make it simple to jot down and later find a phone number without squinting. She mentioned specifically that her mother, who'd stopped using her old address book because the text was too small, started using this one daily again, almost immediately. The sturdy cover has also held up well to being tossed in a purse or kept by the phone, without the pages tearing loose the way cheaper spiral-bound books sometimes do. She specifically mentioned that being able to actually use an address book again, rather than relying entirely on a phone, gave her mother back a small sense of independence she hadn't realized she'd lost. It's a detail that's easy to overlook when shopping for someone else, but she said it's exactly the kind of quiet dignity these small tools can genuinely restore. It's a reminder that the most impactful gifts for an aging parent aren't always the biggest or most expensive ones. Sometimes it really is just about making an everyday task slightly easier to manage on their own. Number 4. The Silicone Jar Opener Sheet. This flat silicone sheet, at $1.25, wraps around any stubborn lid to provide instant grip, and she said it solved more kitchen frustration for her parents than almost anything else on this list. It works on jars, bottles, and even stuck container lids, and it stores flat in a drawer without taking up any real space. She specifically likes that it doesn't require any real strength on its own, just enough grip to twist, which makes it accessible even on days when hand strength varies. It's small enough to keep in a kitchen drawer without taking up space, but she said it gets pulled out far more often than any specialty jar opening gadget her parents have tried in the past. She's kept a spare in her own kitchen too, saying it's simply become a habit at this point, regardless of who's actually doing the opening. It's proven itself flexible enough to work on a wide range of lid sizes and shapes, from a small spice jar to a larger pickle jar, without needing a different tool for each one. Before we get to the second half of her list, she made a point of explaining why these particular picks matter more than flashier finds. According to her, the products that actually make a difference for older shoppers are rarely exciting. They're the boring, practical items that quietly remove a small daily frustration. That's exactly the filter she used building this list, not what looks impressive in a haul video, but what she'd genuinely trust with her own family. She also mentioned that working the register gives her a unique window into what actually gets used versus what gets returned or quietly abandoned in a drawer. The items that keep showing up in repeat purchases, she said, are almost never the trendy ones. They're the practical, unglamorous tools that solve a genuine daily problem without any fanfare at all. She also mentioned that customers rarely come back specifically to thank an employee for a purchase, but the handful of times it's happened, it's almost always been for something on this exact list: the can opener, the talking clock, the jar opener sheet. Small items that ended up mattering far more than their price tag would suggest. She laughed a little describing it, saying nobody ever writes a heartfelt note about a trendy seasonal find, but plenty of people have gone out of their way to mention how much a simple can opener changed their daily routine. Number 5. The Weighted Non-Slip Cutting Board. This cutting board, at $1.25, has small rubber feet on the bottom that keep it firmly in place on a counter, which she specifically flagged as important since a sliding cutting board is a real hazard while chopping. It's held up well to regular knife use without deep gouging, and the rubber feet haven't come loose even after months of daily washing. She specifically recommends it over a standard board for anyone whose balance or stability isn't quite what it used to be, since a board that shifts mid-chop is a genuinely avoidable risk. She's also noticed that the added stability makes prep work go faster overall, since there's no need to constantly readjust or hold the board steady with a free hand while cutting. It's a small enough change that it's easy to overlook when shopping, but she said it's exactly the kind of quiet upgrade that prevents an accident before it ever has a chance to happen. She specifically recommended it alongside the shower caddy and non-slip bath mat as a small set of kitchen and bathroom safety upgrades, worth tackling together in a single shopping trip. Number 6. The Large Button Remote Control Cover. This soft, high-contrast remote control cover, at $1.25, slides over a standard remote to make the buttons easier to see and press, especially in a dim room. She mentioned it's been one of her father's favorite small upgrades, since he no longer needs to turn on extra lights just to find the volume button. It fits most standard remote sizes, and the bright color makes it much easier to spot immediately on a cluttered coffee table or between couch cushions. It's a small, almost silly-sounding upgrade on paper, but she said it's genuinely reduced her father's frustration with the television more than any other single change they've made. It's proven durable enough to stay put on the remote without peeling or loosening, even after months of daily handling and the occasional accidental drop. It's a genuinely simple fix for a genuinely common frustration, and she said she's honestly surprised more people don't think to try it before assuming a new remote or a bigger television is the only real solution. Number 7. The Insulated Coffee Mug with Lid. This spill-resistant mug, at $1.25, has a secure lid that prevents the kind of accidental spills that become more common with a shakier grip, while still keeping coffee hot far longer than an open mug would. She said it's replaced nearly every open mug in her parents' cabinet, specifically because it's saved several carpet stains already. The lid seals well enough that it can be safely carried from room to room, which has genuinely reduced the number of times a cup gets bumped and spilled while walking with it. She specifically likes that it looks like a normal mug rather than a medical device, which matters to a lot of people who don't want their home filled with anything that feels clinical or overly assistive looking. It also keeps drinks noticeably warmer for longer, which she said her father specifically appreciates since he tends to sip coffee slowly over a long stretch of the morning rather than all at once. It's become such a habit in her parents' house that she said buying a spare is now automatic. Whenever she happens to walk past that specific aisle, just in case the current one ever gets lost or damaged. Number 8. The Foam Grip Pen and Pencil Set. This cushioned grip writing set, at $1.25, reduces hand strain during longer writing tasks like filling out forms or writing checks, something she noticed her mother avoiding simply because regular pens had become uncomfortable to hold. The wider barrel has made handwriting noticeably steadier and less tiring according to her own observation, and the difference has been noticeable enough that she's mentioned it unprompted more than once. She's kept a couple in every room specifically because her mother used to avoid writing altogether rather than deal with the discomfort of a thin, hard pen barrel. Now she says her mother writes letters and cards again regularly, something she'd quietly given up on without ever really explaining why, at least not until the grip issue finally came up naturally in conversation one afternoon. She's since given a couple of these sets away as small gifts, saying it's the kind of thoughtful, practical present that doesn't feel like a statement about someone's age or ability, just a genuinely useful everyday tool. She said that framing matters a lot when giving these kinds of items as gifts. Presenting them as simple conveniences rather than aids tends to land far better with anyone who's sensitive about needing extra help. Number 9. The Shower Caddy with Suction Mount. This suction-mounted shower caddy, at $1.25, keeps soap, shampoo, and a washcloth within easy reach, without needing to bend down or reach across a slippery tub. She specifically mentioned it as one of the simplest, most overlooked safety upgrades on this entire list. The suction mount has held securely to tile, without slipping loose over time, and it keeps everything organized in one predictable spot, which matters a lot for anyone who's ever fumbled around blindly for a shampoo bottle on a slippery shower floor. She's also noticed it reduces the number of bottles cluttering the tub edge, which on its own removes one more thing that could potentially get knocked over or tripped on while getting in or out. She also mentioned it's easy enough to install and reposition that she's moved it a couple of times to find the exact right height and angle for her parents' specific shower. Between the caddy, the cutting board, and the non-slip elements already mentioned on this list, she said a single focused shopping trip could genuinely address most of the small everyday safety gaps in an older person's home. Number 10. Saving her personal favorite for last, the talking digital clock. This clock, at $1.25, announces the time allowed at the press of a button, which she said has become genuinely essential for her father, who has some vision difficulty and no longer needs to squint at a small display in the dark. She called it the single most meaningful item on this entire list. The one purchase she'd never skip if she had to start over from scratch. It's also proven reliable through daily use without needing frequent battery changes, and the volume is loud enough to hear clearly from across a room without being jarring in a quiet house at night. She specifically described the moment her father first used it as genuinely emotional, since something as simple as knowing the time on his own, without asking or squinting, gave him back a small piece of independence he'd quietly missed. If she could only recommend one single item from this entire list to another family in a similar situation, she said without hesitation that this would be it, no question at all. It's the kind of answer that came without any pause or hesitation whatsoever, which told me exactly how much this particular item has genuinely mattered to her own family. Well beyond just being a good product recommendation that covers all 10 items on this employee's personal shopping list for her own parents And it's easy to see why none of them are the flashy, trending finds that usually dominate haul videos. Every single one addresses a real, specific daily frustration rather than chasing a viral moment, which is exactly the kind of insight that's hard to get without actually working the floor and watching what genuinely helps people day to day. What struck me most about her answers was how consistent the underlying theme was across every single item: safety, comfort, and independence, rather than novelty or trend. She didn't need to think hard about any of them either. Each one came up naturally as she talked through her own experience shopping for her parents over the past couple of years. None of these are purchases anyone would post about online normally, but according to her, they're exactly the kind of quiet, practical upgrades that make a genuine difference in someone's daily life. The sort of thing you only notice once you've lived with it for a while and can't imagine going back. If you're shopping for an aging parent or relative yourself, this list is a genuinely solid starting point, built on real, first-hand observation rather than guesswork. It's also worth asking an employee at your own local store the same question, since inventory and personal experience can vary from location to location, and you might get an entirely different, equally useful answer. Most employees who've worked the floor for a while genuinely enjoy being asked this kind of question, since it gives them a chance to share something they've actually thought about, rather than just ringing up a routine purchase. Which one of these 10 would make the biggest difference for someone in your life? Let us know in the comments below, and if an employee at your own local store has shared a similar recommendation, we'd love to hear it too, since these kinds of first-hand insights are exactly what make lists like this genuinely useful rather than just another generic haul, and every single suggestion helps build out an even better list for next time. If you found this list useful, make sure you're subscribed, because we bring you insider perspectives like this regularly, straight from the people who actually work the floor and see what holds up over time, week after week, long after the shine of any trending product has worn off. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.